In the name of Almighty One God, who is most merciful and beneficent. Dear friends, my name is Dr. Abu Abdullah, and you are watching my YouTube channel. I am certified from 6 universities of the world. There was a time then when Muslims were ruling the world and they were giving the systems and everything to the world, and Europe was in darkness. That period is called medieval time or golden age. The Muslims contributed to the world in lot of faculties, lot of departments, lot of areas and fields. Today our topic is contribution of Muslims in educational institutions. The call of Holy Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, peace be upon him, to seek knowledge even onto the distant China awakened a love of knowledge among the nomadic Arabs, such as was hitherto unknown to the world. Such memorable words uttered by the Holy Prophet as the ink of the scholar is more holy than the blood of the martyr. And he who leaves his home in search of knowledge walks into the path of God. Had a salutary effect upon his followers and led to the growth of intense educational activity throughout the length and breadth of the Islamic domains. Science and literature possesses no votaries, says Amir Ali, but the words of Prophet gave a new impulse to the awakened energies of the race. Even within his lifetime was formed the nucleus of an educational institution which in after years grew into universities at Baghdad and Salerno, at Cairo and Cordoba. After the downfall of the Roman Empire, chaos and intellectual stagnation held sway over the civilized world. The masterpiece of Greek philosophy, science, and art lay buried under the dark walls of monasteries and might have disappeared altogether from the world but for the Arab Muslim revival and patronage of ancient learning. The Arab Muslims, says Humbert, were admirably suited to act the part of mediators and to influence the nations from the Euphrates to the Guadalquivir and the Mid Africa. Their unexampled intellectual activities mark a distinct epoch in the history of the world. The educational and intellectual activity during the lifetime of the Prophet was started by the house of Prophet himself. Hazrat Ali, who was a cousin of Prophet ﷺ, was brought up and educated under the direct supervision of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and he acquired a high reputation in Islamic learning. He lectured on those branches of learning most suited to the wants of the infant state. Hazrat Ali and his cousin Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas rose to be the greatest intellectual figures of their age. The latter delivered public lecture on poetry, grammar, history, and mathematics. Now let's see what was the system of education in those times. During the early decades of Islam, mosques formed the nerve center of political, religious, and educational activities in Islam. Even during the present time, mosques, houses, maktabs, and important institutions of religious education throughout the Islamic countries. Special quarters were attached to the mosques and shrines for the residence of teachers, students, and travelers. This provision continues even to this day in Syria, Persia, and several other Muslim countries. Madrasa mosques was an innovation Madrasa mosque was an innovation of Persia, whose big congregational mosques had separate portions assigned for the important institutions which imparted education in all branches of learning. The child's education at home began with the kalima and the teaching of prayers and the Quran. The primary education was imparted in maktabs and mosques, which were confined to the elementary, religious, and linguistic teaching. The girls were allowed in the lower grades of the schools but not in the higher ones. Memory work was especially emphasized. The wealthy children employed private tutors. The celebrated Caliph Harun Rashid gave these instructions to the tutor of his son, Amin, which throws light on the system of aristocratic education in those times. Be not strict to the extent of stifling his faculties or lenient to the point of making him enjoy idleness and accustom himself thereto. Straightened him as much as thou canst through kindness and gentleness, but fell into the resort to force and severity should he not respond. Adult education was not as systematic as it's today. The curriculum revolved around the religious education, which was the most important subject at this stage. The Muslim religion, as it is well known, is not theocratic, rather, it is dynamic and practical, reflecting on diverse aspects of a robust practical life. Mosques served as an educational center and made provisions for lectures on Hadith and Quran. The wandering geographer Muqaddasi, who visited the distant Sus and traveled through Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and Faras, found in these countries many circles and assemblies composed of fiqh, legists, divines, and literarians who had selected the mosque as venue of their intellectual and educational activities. The Imam al-Shafi presided at such a circle at the mosque of Amr at al-Fustarat till his death in 820 AD. Ibn Hawqal mentioned similar assemblies in Sajistan. Not only religious but even linguistic, philosophical, and literary subjects were taught in such assemblies. Such lectures in mosques, which continued up to the 11th century AD, were free for all Muslims. University education in the real sense of the word started in 11th century AD with the opening of Nizamiya universities of Nishapur and Baghdad. The universities taught almost all science and art but mostly relied on theoretical teaching. In spite of lacking modern scientific laboratories, these Islamic universities produced such eminent scientists as modern India and Pakistan have not produced so far. The higher grade teachers were much respected and granted a recognized certificates to their pupils who completed particular course of study. There are several good points in Islamic education which have existed for the last 13 centuries. Islamic education was free, hence provided equal opportunities to the rich and the poor to acquire the higher education available in the Islamic universities of the world. Not only that, but students were provided with the free boarding, lodging, and even with stationery, books, and pocket expenses. The modern age, in spite of its enormous resources, cannot boast of such an elaborated system of free education. A university education can only be attained nowadays by wealthy students. It was because education was free that from the lowest strata of society have risen some of the brightest intellectual luminaries of the Islamic world, like Al Ghazali, Hazrat Abdul Qadir Jilani, Al Biruni, Al Razi, and Al Farabi. Memory was much emphasized in the study, and some of the renowned Muslim scholars and teachers possesses amazing memories. In those days, there were no diaries and memoranda, and retentive faculties were developed to a phenomenal degree. Al Ghazali, Ahmad bin Hanbal, and famous traditionalist Al Bukhari memorized numerous traditions with their chain of authorities. The celebrated poet Mutanabbi, Tamman, and Al Marwi possesses wonderful memories and never found it necessary to buy a book. The use of rod by teachers was common in Oriental as well as in Western education during medieval time. The learned professors used to lecture on different subjects, and the pupils used to sit around them and take notes of their lectures. This was a popular method of teaching in higher institutions. The professors and teachers were much respected by their students and were held in great esteem in the highest society. Even the sons of caliphs and emperors paid great respect to their teachers. Once Muhammad al-Rashid was beaten by his teacher Yazidi. Jafar Barmaki, the Grand Vizier of the Abbasid Empire, chanced to arrive there at the time and took Mamun with him. The next day, Yazidi asked Mamun if he had complained about him to the Prime Minister. Thereupon Mamun replied like a humble pupil, "No, my respected sir, how can I complain against my teacher? I would not even inform the Caliph Harun with such matters rather than Jafar." The teachers and learned professors in the great Islamic institution were the incarnation of simple living and high thinking. They led an exemplary life and bore high characters. The students copied and pious lives of their teacher. Though memory was much stressed and the practical side of the sciences was neglected, yet the education imparted to the students was substantial and creative. It really added to their knowledge and stands in great contrast to the superficial education of modern times. There were three kinds of institutions. Number one, those established and supported by the ruling class. Number two, those founded by the wealthy class and supported by donations and endowments. And number three, those found by private lectures. The finance of the institution, especially of the higher ones, were met by the states. Exchequer, donation, and endowment. The teachers who were not highly paid led a simple but respectable life. Their intellectual pursuits didn't give them time to think about and participate in worldly pleasures. Donations poured into the institution, which always kept their finance sound and had enough funds to make arrangements for the free education, lodging, and boarding of large number of students. In his treatise pedagogo, on pedagogy, Zarunji has recorded this saying of Hazrat Ali: "I am slave of him who has taught me even one letter." Al-Zarnunji has written scores of Arab Muslim treatises on education. So, this is the first lecture on contribution of Muslims in education. Keep on watching my channel, Dr. Abu Abdullah.